Gwendolyn Brooks is an important voice in poetry. She is a remarkable figure who lived a long life throughout a very tumultuous 20th century in the United States. Born in Topeka, Kansas around 1917, moved shortly thereafter to Chicago, raised on the south side of Chicago, basically as part of the Great Migration into the urban centers that happened among African Americans in the early part of the 20th century. And the rhythms of that childhood, that experience growing up, uh, bred into her bones essentially, and she was able to turn that into a really unique poetic idiom that is unlike anybody else really in the history of American literature and poetry in general. And probably her most famous work, her most significant work, possibly even, is a very short poem that is one of the reasons it's so successful is that it's so short, and thus becomes very well easily anthologized. Is one called "We Real Cool," and it's just it's barely 30 words long. And it's got a very unique rhythmic quality to it that makes it stand out and is a rather shocking development. And it comes out of this awareness of and familiarity with the urban blight of racial discrimination and ghettoizing of young people, and she uses this as an opportunity to reflect on that phenomenon that was basically weaning off an awful lot of kids who might otherwise be, fairly productive human beings, but got stuck in a cycle of dejection and poverty. So it's "We Real Cool," a very short, punchy title, and it's the first line of the poem. It starts with a setting. She has a little flair for the dramatic in this. She casts it as the pool players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. Presumably, the Golden Shovel is a pool hall somewhere, probably on the south side of Chicago. And the poem is very simple from there. We real cool. We left school. We lurked late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. We die soon. Ah, obviously that heavy syncopation is very dramatic. It just captures you, and you can read this a number of different ways. I believe in an interview once, Miss Brooks said that the "we" at the end of the line is supposed to be rather softly pronounced. I'm not sure exactly how you do that. To my ears, the poem kind of wants to be pronounced like this. In which case, I think that makes it honestly even more interesting because I don't know of a single other poem in the entire corpus of arts and letters where every single word is emphasized, every single word is stressed, and you can sort of play around with this in a jazzy way to soften some of the pronunciations, or at least some of the stresses. And I find myself sort of doing that a little bit, especially as you get a couple of lines in. But the poem still seems to assert that punch rhythm. And it is objectively, in terms of its storytelling, a story of wasted youth, of kids who are just hanging around, not caring much about life, just wasting their lives. And in the end, of course, bad things happen. Now, you can look at that a couple of different ways. You can look at that and say, well, she's telling a nice little morality tale here. Is, if they weren't all just dropping out of school and hanging around a pool hall, maybe they would have successful and productive lives. And because they did all those things, because they became juvenile delinquents, as the term was back then, that's when destruction is unavoidable. We die soon. But also, I think the rhythm of it objectifies it just a little bit more. I think the simplicity of it objectifies it just a little bit more. So you start thinking, well, is that necessarily so obvious? Maybe that's just a trite little construction of how we're perceiving this poem, how we're perceiving this category of humanity. These young people who don't have a lot of opportunities, perhaps, and are just trying to figure out how to live their lives. We real cool. Hey, we're really cool. We left school. Yeah, who doesn't from time to time? For Christ's sake, we lurk late. Lurking is a very suspicious word. There, it's a great word choice, and of course you get the alliteration in there. We strike straight. More alliteration. Striking, that sounds like violence. You strike straight. Maybe we're talking about this is in the era of let's say gang rumbles and stuff. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. That line is very curious. And there are a lot of critics who weigh in on what that could mean. Jazz is this is a product of, let's say, she did grow up through the jazz age, and certainly jazz in the African American experience, particularly in the Great Migration, was a remarkable and enormous cultural influence and product of this culture. But it has other connotations. Some critics have said that, well, it suggests a kind of sexuality, perhaps, and the role of June in there is also like hotly debated, and I don't know what it means, and it's just sort of up there. But it does give that that simple, alliterative, single syllable punch. Every word in this is a single syllable, of course, so that every word is emphasized. But towards the end, after we have gone through this experience, maybe this is just supposed to be a puzzle. Maybe this is supposed to be something unintelligible, something that we can't figure out, that suddenly from there, oh, well, we die soon. So the poem begins with something that is very recognizable. We left school. Again, everybody kind of does that from time to time. Everybody maybe, cuts for a period or something like that, and then, finds their way back in by the end of the day. That seems almost kind of harmless and very recognizable, very identifiable, very knowable. Staying up late, okay, yeah, same thing. Who doesn't stay up a little bit too late from time to time? We strike straight. Well, now it's starting to get dangerous. We sing sin. Well, okay, all right, but still, it's starting to get a little bit dangerous here. We thin gin. Now it's starting to get, maybe a little ugly. We're talking about substance abuse, even in the jazz age. That's going to be an issue. And then we jazz June. And exactly where that is and what that is unknowable, perhaps. But it seems to be getting progressively more complicated, so that last one, before and that we die soon, is a puzzle, because maybe the poem is pointing out that it doesn't have to lead towards that, or maybe the poem is pointing out that we have no idea why that kind of behavior automatically leads to that, except for, maybe the obvious one, that Racism, very possibly, and Miss Brooks was a an outspoken voice in the civil rights movement. She went on in the 1980s to be U.S. Poet Laureate, so she had a quite the pedestal to promote poetry of a certain temper and substance, and it is a remarkable career that I think finds a great concrete example in this poem.